Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we actually have some more Jurassic World figures, some more Mattel figures, but they're not Dino Trackers for once, as we've had pretty much only Dino Tracker Mattel stuff up lately. We this time actually get to resort back to the Jurassic World Dominion line, as some random new Jurassic World Dominion figures have begun hitting Dollar Tree. We have more for the Micro Collection, and I actually really quite like the Micro Collection. I've been a big fan of it since the start. They're really cool kind of stylized versions of dinosaurs that I feel like almost resemble hatchlings at times, but sometimes maybe not so much. But we have some pretty cool versions, again, Dominion style this time around, as we've got an Atroceraptor, a Giganotosaurus, a Pyroraptor, and a Therizinosaurus. So some pretty cool new ones being introduced to the line here, and you can see again that they are in their own individual packaging. We'll probably at some point get another one of those random sets where there's just like a bunch in one set. They've done it so far with every one of these releases, so I'd imagine that's only a matter of time before it comes along. But you can see again that the packaging looks pretty much as you'd expect for a Dominion version, as we've got the nice Dominion logo and everything there on the front, but then on the back it's just random information. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop these out of the package, and we're going to jump straight to a closer look at them right now. So we will begin with the Therizinosaurus, and you can see that yet again we have pupils and everything for our Therizinosaurus. At this point I'm just almost begging Mattel to give us that kind of blind appearance that we did see on the Therizinosaurus in Dominion, but yet again we do have eyes painted on it, which is, it's whatever. But you can see that the sculpt looks really nice, again, as far as kind of giving us almost that hatchling style Therizinosaurus. It looks pretty good. I think the tail's a tad too long, but we can see that the tail's kind of resting on the ground and curved over. The feather detail does look pretty nice on the figure as a whole, and we have some nice looking coloration for it. Probably better paint apps on this than we see on most Mattel figures, because we can see we have a blue starting here on the face, and that blue runs down through pretty much the entire body, except you can see that we transition to a white for the claws, and then you can also see that we have like some white for the legs, and then that kind of white here, or even maybe it's a light gray, but running along the underside here. It looks more like a white to me, actually. But you can see it runs along the underside, but it does run the entire underside, it looks like, potentially. Yeah, it's a little hard to get over there, but it does look like it does run the entire underside of the figure, which is something we don't always see from Mattel. And you can see that we have this reddish type of coloration that runs along the back here of the Therizinosaurus, running all the way out onto the tail as well. And then, of course, we always have our little random base here that just has like vegetation and stuff on it, which is just, a fun little extra. But the sculpt of this one looks pretty nice. Again, the entire figure as a whole has kind of a glossy look to it, which I'm not a super huge fan of. It makes it stand out, that's for sure. It's not something that I personally am a big fan of, would be that glossy look, but you can see all the details you would expect to see. We've got the beak sculpted nicely, the nostrils, all the nice skin texture throughout. So even when it comes to tiny figures like this, Mattel still does apply their best effort when it comes to giving us a really highly detailed look. The one thing that I find weird about this figure, though, is that down here in the claws we have webbing between the claws, which is very strange. I don't know if, I guess maybe that's just the way the figure was made, but it makes it look like it actually has webbing between the, trademark Therizinosaurus claws, which looks very, very weird. But as a whole, that is a pretty nice one. I actually quite like the Therizinosaurus as far as the, micro collection version goes. It's really quite nice. Then we've got ourselves the Atroceraptor, and I think the Atroceraptor just looks like a Velociraptor, and that's something that the one defining feature that would differentiate the Atroceraptor from a Velociraptor in toy form would be the head sculpt, and kind of making it look more Atroceraptor-ish than Velociraptor-ish. But to me, just like we saw with the bendy biters, I feel like the head sculpt here looks way more Velociraptor-ish rather than Atroceraptor-ish. But regardless, it's given that kind of Lost World Jurassic Park coloration as far as the Velociraptor goes. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is meant to be Tiger, because that's the one that kind of resembled the Lost World Raptors. And the same deal I think we had for the bendy biters would have been that orangish coloration. But you can see, again, sculpt and detail-wise, it's really quite nice, like very highly detailed. We've got some yellow eyes with a black slit-like pupil. The eyes do have a gloss coat to them. The inside of the mouth is painted. As you can see, the mouth is open. It's a little sloppy as far as the paintwork in there goes, but it could definitely be worse. The eye paint actually looks pretty good. You can see that we have that striping running down the back here with a dark brown. It does end right past the hip region, though. We don't get that coloration out onto the tail, which means the Therizinosaurus was painted better than the raptor here, or again, the Atroceraptor. But you can see that outside of that, though, the detailing does look pretty nice. There's just not much paintwork to this one, but sculpt-wise, it looks pretty much as you would expect it to. Really nice skin texture. You've got a nicely sculpted foot that looks like your classic Mattel Raptor foot sculpt. And it would have been nice to see some painted nails or something on this one just to kind of make it a little bit better as far as the paint apps go, but you know, it's just the way it is, I guess. It looks like it's potentially the exact same base that we had for the Therizinosaurus, as well as we have like this little hump right here, and then some little tiny humps back here in the back, and then the area where the dinosaur stands. So it looks like the base as well is the same, again, just kind of like covered in vegetation. The one that would definitely be my favorite of the bunch, same deal that happened with the bendy biters, is the Pyroraptor. This Pyroraptor is fantastic. Look at this thing. This thing is just super, super cool. Obviously not exactly a screen-accurate Pyroraptor, but we are talking about the micro collection, so I wouldn't expect that here. But you can see it looks super nice. We have some very nice looking paintwork to it as well. You get that black for the face, a very nicely painted eye with a yellow and a black slit-like pupil. You've got the teeth, even though the mouth is closed, the teeth are actually painted out there on the side of the head here of the Pyroraptor, which looks awesome. You've also got the feathers kind of leading off of the back of the head here. They are sculpted pretty nicely. There's not too much fine detail, but they do look really quite nice. But as you move a little further down into the body, you can definitely pick up on some nicer feather detail, especially in the tail area, which yet again, the tail is, we're losing focus, but the tail is exceptionally long on the figure. But I like that we have the sides of it outlined with a black and then the red kind of running down the center of the tail. Really nice curves for the tail. You've got feathers running up here along the back. Looks like we have a little bit more skin texture on this than we would probably see on a Pyroraptor, especially the Dominion version. But again, maybe this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. Maybe it's a hatchling and it's just kind of, you know, getting the feathers, I guess, they're starting to grow in. But regardless, I think the Pyroraptor is easily the nicest of the micro collection, and I would potentially say the nicest micro collection figure that we've had, period. That thing is awesome. Definitely a very, very cool looking Pyroraptor. And then we've got the Giganotosaurus, and looking at this one, what I think is humorous to me is that the head sculpt of this looks a lot closer to screen accurate than any of the Mattel Giganotosaurus that we've seen prior to this, which is ridiculous to say that the micro collection would have the closest to screen accurate head sculpt, but I think it personally does. But yet again, it looks really nice and definitely looks better as far as the way, you know, it would look compared to the version we see on screen than what we had seen in the bendy biters. The bendy biters are just so exaggerated and ridiculous looking. At least these micro collection figures kind of resemble the dinosaurs from the films, and I think that this actually does, again, look really nice. The detailing looks good. You can see the nostrils sculpted out there. The eye is painted with, yet again, a yellow and a black pupil. The skin texture actually looks really, really nice. Quite vibrant looking sculpt as a whole. You've got the mouth slightly open and the teeth are painted, as is the tongue in there, even though it's a little hard to actually see it because the mouth doesn't articulate and it's, you know, not open all that wide, but the tongue is definitely painted. And then we have, of course, that greenish coloration for the Giga with that darker tone kind of running down, and it does run out onto the tail, not the entire way, but fairly far. The tail's nice and short, the head's pretty big, the feet are pretty big, so it has that very hatchling-like appearance to it. So definitely another really nice one. You've got that same style base again that we see on the entire lineup of micro collection this time, but we also have those ridges again on the back, and then they pick back up and get a little larger there in the mid-back area, so they have captured that aspect of the Giga as well. But yeah, this one's definitely really nice. I really, really like the Giga, and the Pyroraptor are my favorite for sure, but the Therizinosaurus is like right there behind it, and again, they all have that very cute kind of hatchling-like look to them, and I can definitely say it's another round of micro collection that is certainly worth searching out and picking up, especially for 3 out of the 4. The Atroceraptor's not so great, but the other 3, including this Giga, are absolutely awesome. Now, on top of these figures, there are actually repackaged versions of some of the others. As we can see, we've got the Ankylosaurus and the Triceratops, so we have those in the Dominion packaging as well, but the figures themselves look the same to me as the previously released versions. But as far as the size goes, if you are unfamiliar with these figures, I guess we'll measure the Giga. We're only going to measure one because they're all right around the same size range. So you're looking at a little over 2 inches in between, I'd say actually like 2 1/8 or around closing in on 5.5 centimeters, like just shy of it. And then about 1.5 inches or right around 3, actually I would say close to 4 centimeters. So they're very, very small. And to show you that for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our micro collection figures. And now, I often try to give you guys more comparisons nowadays compared to what I used to, but every once in a while we get to a point where like the figures should be fairly obvious, and I feel like numerous different size comparisons aren't really beneficial and just add an unnecessary length to the video when they're already long enough. So I feel like, again, this comparison's probably good enough for these guys. If you are unfamiliar with the size of the micro collection, head to your local Dollar Tree and just check them out. They're always there, or at least they're always at mine anyway. Maybe not these newest ones quite yet, or they may not be everywhere, but like there are usually Jurassic World micro collection figures there. So if you happen to have a Dollar Tree near you, again, you'll probably already own some of these, or at the very least have seen them. And if not, then hopefully one of these figures here will help to give you an idea of the fact that they are really quite small. So these brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dominion micro collection figures are definitely fun, and it's sad to say that the Dominion line is pretty much over at this point because I really enjoyed the Dominion line and it was definitely a very, very fun toy line with tons of really cool stuff. But it is nice to see that there are still some stragglers hanging around, and we're getting a few new Dominion figures that are just starting to hit stores once in a while, like these micro collection figures. And again, this is another wave of micro collection that I really quite like. We've got 4 different new species added to the lineup this time around. 4 really nice species that I would say are like the definitive new species for Dominion you would want to kind of advertise. I would like to actually have seen a Quetzalcoatlus in this range because it would have been cool to see a pterosaur actually get introduced to the micro collection. But regardless, we have the Atroceraptor, who in my opinion is the weakest of the bunch, even though it is cool to have an Atroceraptor in micro collection form, especially since I'm a big fan of the Atroceraptors from Dominion. The actual version we have here looks a lot more like a Velociraptor than an Atroceraptor, and I feel like maybe that might have been the original idea, was to just create a Velociraptor, and then they were like, well, it's Dominion, we're going to just give them an Atroceraptor instead. But it does look more like a Lost World Jurassic Park Velociraptor, more so than an Atroceraptor, but at the same time, I love the Lost World Jurassic Park Raptors, so that's not necessarily a bad thing that it resembles one of those more so than the Atroceraptor. As far as like looking like an Atroceraptor, not so much. Still pretty decent figure, just not really looking like the dinosaur it's meant to be. Then we've got ourselves the Therizinosaurus, which is my 3rd favorite of the bunch, and it is a really nice figure. Definitely has a nice sculpt, has some nice paint. Not a giant fan of the glossy look that it has as a whole, but it's still a pretty cool version of a Therizinosaurus with a ridiculously long tail, but still pretty cool as a whole, and again fits that micro collection appearance quite perfectly. Then you've got the Giganotosaurus, which is definitely nice, and again majorly has that hatchling-like appearance with the larger head, the short tail, the big feet. Everything on this one screams hatchling Dominion Giganotosaurus, so they did do a very good job on this. And again, the head sculpt, in my opinion, looks probably the best out of any Mattel Giganotosaurus we've seen so far. It just doesn't look so wide and weird looking. It looks closer to what the Giga looks like in Dominion, so they did do a good job on that one, and some pretty fun paint apps. But my favorite as a whole is definitely the Pyroraptor, just because it's so ridiculous looking, so off the wall crazy, just like the Bendy Biters version was. This one as well is a standout, I think, for the line, so super, super nice looking sculpt, super nice looking paint, definitely my favorite as a whole, and I would say probably the coolest Bendy Biters figure we've had yet. So definitely another round of very cool micro collection figures from Mattel. Again, it's sad to say goodbye to the Dominion line, but at least we get to take a look at these guys before it goes. I don't know if this is the last Dominion review that I'll get from Mattel here on the channel, as I might have covered everything else that I can recall, but Who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and some more random figures will pop up at some point soon. Regardless, if you are interested in these, make sure you head to your local Dollar Tree, as they should be stocking them soon if they're not there already. Make sure you pick them up, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.